nonprofits to be able to better disprove and evaluate your impact. And so what we're going to be talking about this week is specifically logic models. And so last week, we were just reviewing more of just the different things that we're talking about for the last part of the journey when it's talking about quantitative and qualitative impact, effectiveness, and just showing how helpful that really is instead of just being able to prove everything that you guys do specifically. And so this week, we're going to be, again, just talking just about logic models. And the question that we have been more so focusing on through the entire time is, how do we know our programs are making an impact? How do we know our programs are making an impact? And that was the point of looking at program effectiveness, of looking at community buy-in. So program effectiveness was looking at attendance, of satisfaction, of are people knowing and understanding what the point and the overall goal of your programs are. Then we looked at community buy-in from the perception of the participants that are a part of your organization or part of your programs. Are they actually buying into all the things that your organization is doing? And then we looked at qualitative impact effectiveness, which again goes off of perception, right? And then quantitative, we talked about looking at was not perception. It was more statistics, hard numbers that was there. But even though we're able to answer that question, that doesn't mean we're able to answer the next question that comes out after that. What did you do in order to have this impact? What did you do? So we've been focusing on how do you know that you've proven this impact? But the next question that I've found that a lot of donors ask is, what did you do? And generally, a lot of organizations pause at that question. They pause, and then they end up going off of I like to call an off-the-cuff type of statement of, I am going to sort of finesse my way through this question or finesse my way through this response, and the donor can pretty much tell that I'm finessing through it. And so it really is important to take a step back and understand, what did we do to get there? Even just thinking through the leadership program that I'm going to be leading for this summer, one of the things that actually is a shortfall of the program is that there is no manual or no guidelines into how to go about doing that program and what works and what doesn't. And how do they even get to the effectiveness that they were at? And so that's why we're taking the time to look at answer the question of, what did you do to have this impact? And that has everything to do with logic models. It has everything to do with logic models. But there are three things to logic models that makes that important. So the first thing is replication. Replication is super important because the reality of it is, you are not going to always be in the position that you are in. I am not going to always be in the position that I am in. One, I am getting older. And so I am not going to be able to have the physical attributes to be able to be on the street every single day doing what I do, which means that I have to, at some point, train someone else to take my position. So if I don't have a answer or some type of manual or some type of put something that's written on paper of what did I do to make my job impactful or make my job effective, then once that person comes in, we're not going to be able to replicate what I did. You guys aren't going to be able to replicate what you did. You're going to have to start from ground zero and think about all the emotional pain and all the struggle and all the things you guys went through starting from ground zero. Why start from ground zero when you can start where you left off? Why start from ground zero when you can simply start where you left off? And that's why replication is so important. That's why logic models, as we get really into the weeds of it, is really important. The next thing is accounting for variation. One of the things I was told in college is the only thing that remains the same is change. Pretty weird statement, but the only thing that remains the same is change, which means that I need to account for change. I need to account for variation. So as I'm doing a program, what might work one year may not work the other year. What might work 1 month if you have a monthly program, may not work the next month. And the reality of it is, think about how often us as individuals change. We change every single day. Honestly, I probably change every single hour, if I had to be completely honest with you guys. So if I am changing that often, and this program is a culmination of individuals, then how often do you think this program needs to be changed to make it continue to be effective for the populations that we are serving? And so accounting for variation is so important because of the business that you guys are in, the business that nonprofits are in. We're serving people, and thus we have to account for people. Reduction. So reduction of program and organization development. This is the negative side of this. Reduction of if we don't have a logic model, reduction of organization and program development. If we aren't able to account for what did we do to get the same impact, well, how are we going to be able to develop our programs and make them better? We're going to reach this place of stagnation. And I know for me, at least, I don't necessarily believe in stagnation, because I'm either going forward or backwards. And if I'm remaining stagnant, then I'm probably going to regress. So I'm either progressing or regressing. But if I'm remaining stagnant, I'm at homeostasis, I'm probably just going to regress, because I'm trying to just keep that same type of pace and trend. And so it's for us to take the time to figure out how can we look at the overall development and not have this reduction. And that comes with the essence of logic models. So let's get into the weeds of logic models a little bit. Actually, a lot of it. So the first thing when it comes to logic models is looking at outcomes. So outcomes are simply at its bare things, and you can look this up online, so you'll be able to see what a logic model looks like for different organizations. International organizations use it all the time. A lot of businesses use it all the time. It's something that's very just much so used in a widely sense, or in a wide sense, worldly sense. But a part of that logic model are outcomes. They're your goals. And I think a good question to ask to be able to figure out what those goals are is, what is the program intended to accomplish? What is your program intended to accomplish? What are the goals of your program? The cool thing about that, though, is as we've been on this journey through this course and through this workshop, we've talked about this thing of a fishbone diagram. And that actually is the very thing that ends up giving you your outcomes and your goals. So you don't have to figure it out sort of for yourself in an arbitrary fashion. You can figure it out by simply pulling from that diagram that you took the time to make and putting it on this one. Because those are your goals and outcomes that you know are connected back to the problem, and that you know are solutions to the heart of those problems that are in the city that you are facing, or country, or whatever community that you are in, or neighborhood. And so that is very much so a reference back to the importance of the logic model and showing you guys how everything that we're doing in this time connects together. So outcomes is something that's very important to look at. The next thing is looking at outputs. So a good question to ask yourself for outputs are, what steps need to be taken by your organization to accomplish these goals? What steps need to be taken by your organization to accomplish these goals? Another way to think about that is, what happens in your programs? What happens in your programs? Those are outputs. What's happening in your programs? So some are one-on-one meetings, for an example, or workshops, or trainings, or different things that are really just around that. Delivery services. I'm going out and getting food. Those are different things that happen in your programs. If you have a campground, there's certain activities that happen in your programs, and you want to write down all those different programs, all those different activities to those programs, because those are all the things that happen in your programs. You want to write down all those outputs, all those things that are occurring in your programs. And the reason why is this, because if you're able to write down everything that happens in your program, then you're able to figure out what's working and what's not. But if you don't write it down and everything's not where you can just simply see it, then you're going to be pulling from different places of, I think it's this, I think it's this, I think it's this, when you can simply look at this one document and say, let me go through this list and actually see what's working and what's not, based off of, are these outcomes being met? So that's one thing. looking at these outputs, what's happening in your programs. But the cool thing about it is there's one more thing that's super important here. They're the inputs. The inputs are the resources. So in order for your activities and programs to work, you need resources. So sometimes it could be shelters, it can be books, it can be transportation. I said shelters because I'm working with the recovery house program, and so one of the things they provided, recovery houses, shelters. And so those are the things that are a part of the program. And the reason why you put that is because maybe your outcome is not being met. Well, then maybe it's not about the outputs or the activity, but maybe it's about you just don't have enough resources. Or maybe the resources aren't effective. Maybe they need to be changed. Maybe the transportation system that you're using isn't okay. Maybe you start out, I guess a real world example is that for the campground, we used to use buses. And we found out that buses wasn't the best way to transport the people from the city of Philadelphia to our campground. We had to start using vans. And so we were able to figure that out by simply using a logic model. And we ended up meeting our outcomes and goals simply by being able to look at this document and see what do we need to change and what don't we need to change. Now, the thing that you're not going to find when it comes to attaching some stuff to a logic model are these lasting things. That I think really do help and have helped as I've been assisting one of the organizations in the recovery house, is writing down a section of what's working. So you go from outputs, outcomes, outputs, inputs, and then have a section of what's working. And so you want to talk about what's working in our programs, what's going well. And one thing I advise the organization One Day at a Time on is for them to have bi-weekly meetings when doing this. And before, they weren't having those meetings. They were having probably every 2 months, they would end up coming together and figuring it out. But so many things happen that you can't account for change every 2 months. And even a month, it's pushing the line. And so encourage them, have bi-weekly meetings. And so they were able to go back and say, what is working as we write it down every week? And the cool thing about it is every week you're able to look at the previous week and see what was working. Is it continuing to work? What do we need to change? So that when someone asks you what's working, well, you can simply show them this document and say, or you can respond and then say, or they ask you, how do you know? And then you say, well, this is how I know. This is what we've been doing every 2 weeks. Wow. The accountability measures that the donor will be able to see in your organization to end up increasing the amount of trust that they will instill in you. Next to that section, though, of what's working, you want to figure out what's not working. You want to put down what's not working, what's not going well, because you want to identify those things as well because they are equally important. And then the last section after that, you want to put down what needs to be changed. And so what I've been advising in these bi-weekly meetings is for them to go through this. Go look at your outputs, look at your inputs, look at your outcomes, and then figure out what's working, what's not working, and what needs to be changed. And what that does is the next week, you look at your previous week of what you've changed and you report back. So were these changes actually working or not working? Were they helpful or not helpful? And then you keep going. And it becomes this never-ending cycle of self-accountability for your organization. And what that does, it again instills trust in the donor as they see you have a streamlined process of, and I speak in a business-minded term, of taking care of their money. A lot of donors don't give money because they don't think that organization will be able to take care of it properly because they don't show it. And so when you're able to show this process, you're able to very much so show, I am being responsible with your money and this is how I know. And I think it's the how I know part is super important. And so this is one of the things that I've been able to advise on, again, the One Day at a Time organization. And it has been going well thus far, where they felt as if it is a combination of relief and overwhelming, where there's a lot of things that are going on. Oh my gosh. But at the same time, every week I'm able to sit down and sort of figure out what I can do to make it better. And so it's, rather than having everything in our heads, it puts it down on paper and it puts it down in a form. And so what I do is I actually use different applications so that you can just go back to it every week. And so it's automatically updating, automatically populating, so everybody has access to it. So there's different systems I use to go ahead and do it. So one of the systems I use, Xmind. It's application specifically on Macs. I'm not sure if it's on Windows computers, but it's Xmind. And then I upload it to a Google Drive. And then so everyone's able to see the automatic updates as I just continue to update it. But it ends up just shows a level of trust for your organization and is able to answer the question of, what did you do to get to this level of impact that you have? And so it's just another step in this overall process, improving your impact. But once you're able to prove it, then you're a part of it is you helping your organization to be able to show, what did you do to get there? And that is also equally important. And so next week, we're just going to talk about just these different stages that our organizations can be in. And so we want to figure out what stage we're in when it comes to evaluating. And so there's 4 different stages. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but I learned it in college. It's I do, you help, we talk. I do, you watch, we talk. And then there's 2 more stages after that. And it's actually really helpful to understand where we start out, because we can't move forward unless we know where we're starting. And yes, I definitely pulled that from Hitch, one of my favorite movies. And yes, I took that from that. But that's what we're going to be talking about next week. But this week is super important because it comes to logic models, and it really just answers the question of, what did we do to get to the impact and the level of impact that we had? And so that is the end of what I have to say. And so I am open to any question that you guys have at this time.
Jameson, can you explain a little bit more about when you said the reduction of organization and program development? I think you were talking about. Yeah, can you just expound on that just a little bit?
Yeah, no, definitely. So when we're not accounting for what we're doing to get to a certain level, then we're not able to grow on developing our organization. We're not able to build upon the stuff that we've already grown in, because we don't know what we've actually looked at, because we're not really looking at anything. And so it puts the organization on a program in a place of stagnation rather than a place of, we can keep developing and we can keep growing. And so that's what I mean by that.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you for having us. But I came on not knowing, but I did for my program. It's called Winning Strategies: Fatherhood, the Courts, and Custody. I did arrange a logic model, and we have been using that.
Nice.
And I've been trying to get it out further to the Black community, African American community, because I know that this whole thing of what they call parental alienation and everything goes on. So basically, that's how I got the 501c3 to do that, the programming. And I was here just to try to see what I can do further for my program and just to get it there. And if you would be so kind, I would just like to maybe share it with you, just so you can see where if I'm falling short or what I can monopolize on, because I do have a line item in there that talks about the social return on the investment for those possible funders that do give money, to say, well, hey, if we do have more fathers involved in the life of the family, that does that can impact on obesity, crime, and everything else with the male and female participants of the fathers. So if you had an email, I could just share it with you, or because I know
most
I can't share it on the screen because you're the organizer.
Yeah, if you I'm gonna put my email in here. Yeah, I would love if you could share it with me. And it should be 3 L's. Yep. So hblllc.info@gmail.com. And that's the best one. But even to respond to that, I think it's amazing that you have that line item. I think that is very unusual, to be completely honest with you, in a good way, in a sense of a lot of nonprofit organizations don't have that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. And even I looked at the Chronicles of Philanthropy, and I was going through and I was looking at, and I was sending letters out to those donors, and they were like, nobody's ever tried to do that, tried to impact that. I'm like, so where's your data coming from? And I'm like, my data is fresh because we just got our 501c3 in August of last year. So we're just taking those fathers in, and they're coming back saying, well, hey, this program, fathers, you need to tack on to it. You need to go with it, because a lot of the courts don't keep that data. Okay. And if they do, you have to be someone from the court arena to get a hold of it. And a lot of times we see that a lot of judges and magistrates don't want to release that information because it can shine a very negative light on the courts on how they're not operating like they're supposed to be. Especially,
would you say the name of that line item again?
The social return on investment.
Social return on investment. Okay, the ROI. Social ROI.
Yes,
okay.
SROI.
Yes. Okay.
I love that.
I like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and even to talk about the obesity piece, I think it'd be amazing if you were able to keep that one item on the social return on investment and say that it's led to this statistic or percentage of an increase, or I guess you would want more of a decrease. So a decrease in obesity. And this is the amount of money, right? And so, and then you'd be able to pull for them. If you give us this much money, we'll be able to do this and this statistic. Right. So I love that. Yeah.
And when I was putting together my whole program piece before I submitted it for a business plan, I had to come up with my numbers. I only used a very small number. I just said 100 fathers. And they said, people looked at it, they was like bewildered at first. And I was like, and somebody took was bold enough to say, well, how did you come up with this? How did you do this? Or how did you manage to plan this? I'm like, you look at society today and you go off of what has been done and what has not been done. Okay, then you compare those numbers. Here in Baltimore, I know there's I forgot the name of the agency that does a lot of data on social issues, but I use that for my study, But I've been trying to get it out there, trying to get some I'll say feelers out there to start to pick up more donors, because they say, well, since you're a nonprofit, how are you sustaining yourself? And I'm like, well, basically, it's the fathers that's doing it right now, because our services that we provide are 80% cheaper than what they would do if they went to an attorney. Because we show them how to do it themselves. We show them how to really put together their case, and it's actually been working for them.
Wow. That's such an awesome success story. I love that.
Congratulations. It sounds
very
amazing.
much so. Yes.
Man, thank you for sharing that with us. Seriously.
I'm sending that to you right now.
Thank you. I'd love to read that. Yeah, I would definitely respond back to that. Yeah, I mean, to share even another success story, I didn't even think about this, but so there's a program we have called the Same Day Program in Philadelphia. And so basically what it is that they found out that a lot of people would go to using opioids and to selling opioids because they needed money right away. And so that was the quickest way that they could get money. And so they created a program called Same Day Program to help these people to get money that same day and have a substantial amount of money really after they've worked in that day, rather than having to wait 2 weeks to get your paycheck. And so what that's led is to 100 to 150 participants being able to have employment after they finish the 4-week program. And being able to record that number based off the amount of funding has now led to the transportation system in Philadelphia is called SEPTA. And so now SEPTA is wanting to give us funding so that we can instill a program under them in which to have these people be employed under them. And so it's just it can be this cycle where people see the impact that you're having based off of what you're showing. And we were able to show, what did we do to get here? This is what we did. And so now it's my job ultimately to evaluate everything now. And so that is just another success story of sort of to capitalize on what he was saying as well. So
great.
I didn't understand.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know, Jameson, when you were listing out the replication, accounting for variation, and the reduction of the program and organizational development, I was thinking when we were setting up our camp this July, I think I've told you we've done 4 camps already in the past 9 years or so, every other year. And this is the first camp that we're dealing with any type of, we're dealing with mental and physical health, just the wellness, right, of young girls. And it is so funny because we have a pattern, we have a schedule, we have a plan, we've got a template for everything, and we generally just change the dates, and go on. And we have a new person now working with us, and she comes from the health industry. And she said to us, as we're trudging along on our 4 days with all of our stuff, she said, "You have no time in there for the girls to just relax." And we're like, what?
Yep.
What? Of course not. They've got to go horseback riding, and they've got to go canoeing, and they've got to do all of these things that they can't do in the city, And she was just like, "No, you guys, we've got to have time for them to relax."
That's
and
true.
that was so foreign to us because, like I said, we start at 12 on Thursday and we're done at 12 on Sunday, and those poor kids look dead by the time it's over, but they love it. But the being able to account for that change, and to see that, we need to schedule an hour where they can just sit on the hammock,
free time,
look at the pond, go for a walk if they feel like it on the grounds, but it was very funny at the time. Well, no, it was not funny. It was very stressful. First,
I'm sure that's a great example. Honestly, we had something very similar. And it more so is just because our generation has started to focus more on mental health than anything else. And I start to see it as just like a huge thing. And so it just sort of doesn't really compute to really say anyone else quite yet. And we have to do the same thing. It's like, wait, what? We're on a detailed schedule here. We have to be here and here and here and here. And so I can definitely share that sentiment. So I'm grateful though.
That just sort of confirmed for me that, we're on the right track, that the change is needed. And, it's not something that we're just, let's throw out the old, it's variation, and it's something that, we recognize. And I appreciate that kind of confirmation that, you're okay.
Yeah, most definitely. And I love that statement though, that it's this balance, this middle ground of you don't just throw out the old. I think that's something that I guess my generation is more defined as. Like we come in, we're very strong-headed, really don't listen to anybody else until someone actually like changes our minds and realize and helps us see that we're not the best people in the world, and they humble us, and we finally see that we don't know everything. And then because we just want to come in and just disrupt everything, we just want to change everything. Let's make it new. Let's start fresh. When it's like, no, there's a lot of things that actually were very helpful. So let's not abandon the old, but also let's consider what other things can we do to develop. And so there has to be a middle ground that's reached. And that's why I love logic models, because it bridges the gap between these two different extremes. And so you're right here in the middle, where this is where we can look at this and look at it with sobriety and with a sober mind and say, well, this is where we can move forward, and with both perspectives in mind. So
yeah, that's cool. If I may ask, winning strategies guy, I didn't get your name.
I'm sorry, my name is Eric. How you doing?
I'm sorry, you said Harry?
Eric,
yeah, thanks, Eric. I'm just curious, did you know about logic models like prior to you setting up a 501c3, or was that something you were familiar with?
Two things I graduated from Lincoln in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, yes.
Yeah. The
Philly.
Portion, yes. And they gave me a tidbit of it, but a program through the Center for Urban Families called the Practitioners Leadership Institute. They work with minorities, and I was able to get in, and that's when they introduced me more to logic models and putting it together. And when I put it together, after I got my 501c3, I got into another program, and there's an attorney that's helping me put everything together so it can be federally looked at. Okay, I can trademark everything. So I'm trying to trademark my logic models. So if anybody try to use it, I'm like, okay, you can give me the royalties from your organization. That's to me. Okay. So basically that's how I'm putting together not me. My wife and I are putting together the logic model, because she gave me the inspiration to do it based on how I was treated in courts. And I don't want any father to be manhandled when they go to court anymore, because the courtroom is not for people of color. So you need to go in with one leg up, knowing your game. And my program teaches you how to do that as a pro se litigant, which means you're representing yourself.
Wow.
That's awesome. Thank you.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's
wow.
cool.
I'm always taken back by all of you guys. Wow. Just hearing you guys' passions and what you guys do. I'm like, yeah, all I can do is just keep learning from you guys.
No, you are doing an amazing job, James.
You are.
Yes, thank you. I mean,
Mr. Jackson, if you had an email, I could send you a copy of it.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
I like a copy.
Type your email in the chat so I can.
I will do that. Yeah, I didn't want to be so bold as to ask.
Listen, in the nonprofit world, I've realized it's about sharing and helping others get to the next level, not just yourself.
You're awesome. You are awesome. I'm going to give you my business email. I think this is it. Children of Promise, Detroit. Yeah, because it's kind of cool to see, what is being taught, and to see it working in real time. Do you know what I mean? Like this, so Jameson is teaching us about logic models, and right now it is just a theory, or it's just sort of an abstract, my notes on a page, but to see you actually doing it versus something in a textbook, or but to actually see someone using it and it working for you, that is it. But that's funny, because I sure was going to ask. I think catch him. No, actually, I was going to ask Jameson. Jameson, can you just forward me what he sent you?
How my mother used to say, a closed mouth don't get fed.
Well,
how about that? How about that?
There's a reason I never gained weight.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Nah, it's probably an age thing for you, Jameson. My husband was a little nothing until he turned 40. I mean, he was a stick, and he's 6'7", and he was like, 150 pounds or something. And then he turned 40 and it was like, oh, let's just add another 30, 40, 50 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
But he's lost
Thank
it all.
you.
But it was just, he thought he could just keep doing the same things he had been doing for 40 years. And it was like, yeah, no.
Right.
But then it
Yeah, I'm
might
looking
not.
forward to reading this.
Yes.
At times, my son has some issues with one of the mothers of his children, and it's heartbreaking. But life goes on. He'll figure it out.
I'm going to type in the organization's website.
Oh, very cool.
Because what we do, and this is the beauty of having a 501c3 federally funded nonprofit, I don't have to stick with just Baltimore.
Right.
I go out and help fathers in any state. I've helped fathers in Georgia, Washington, Kansas City.
That is awesome. That you'll have the model in any state or city.
Okay.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Winning strategies, FCC. Thank you. What does the F stand for?
Fatherhood, the courts, and custody.
Wow.
Okay.
Just got it.
FCC.
Nice.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Awesome, guys. Well, this is a great week, and hopefully
So do
I'll
you
see
do
you guys
this every
next
week?
Yes. So every week it's at 12 o'clock.
Okay.
So every week at 12 o'clock. So next week would definitely be at 12.
Okay. So I can start to put it down. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you guys for coming again. Seriously.
Sure.
Thank you for making time for us.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thank you for all your knowledge.
Most
Yes.
definitely.
Everyone have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend.
All right, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.